All right, I'm going to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order, Tuesday, October 27th at 5:10 p.m. Statement of public notice. Roll call.
Alderperson Madden.
Here.
Alderperson Kubaki.
Here.
Alderperson Engelhardt.
Here.
Alderperson Kapusta.
Here.
Alderperson Borgman is absent. Alderperson Hamel.
Here.
And Alderperson Wolf.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Thank you. And statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
And we have approval of the minutes, August 13th, 2019.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. New business. Actually, I think we have some people here for the two items at the end, so there are no objections. I'd like to move those up first.
Sure.
Okay. So we will start with the discussion regarding proposed resolution for the Little Muskego Lake District. And Jeff you were going to have a copy for everybody?
Oh, no.
You were,
Nobody, I didn't.
yeah, it was
give
on.
it to you. No, I mean.
No,
you didn't-
Christine was supposed to make copies.
Oh.
Or
I don't
Well, do you
know.
have it?
No.
Well, you have to go get it. and She'll make copies. We can't talk about it if we don't have it.
I don't know, I don't even know where it is.
Uh-oh.
You're on that, Chet. I don't want that other one. I know it's
Yes, well, but I hate to do that too when he's out of the
nothing in
meeting.
there.
You're right, there isn't. Not on the-
Okay. So we will reverse those two while he's doing that. One is discuss written report submitted by the ad hoc committee regarding the taxi service for the seniors and ambulatory adults with disabilities. I have additional info if somebody needs it, a big packet, because there was supporting information, and it also has the two resolutions. A resolution from 2008, and then a resolution for the ad hoc committee in there as well, so.
We can share.
I hope I have enough. You got on that, all of them? Okay.
Thank you. We just put this in digital. Do you have anything else?
Refresh that.
I like this. I like the proposed. Yeah, but now, look at all this. What am I supposed to make a decision? Thank you.
Certainly is.
Some of it's on there. Thank you. Oh, I have this. I think I have this.
Then the rest is it.
No, where's Jake?
We've been given 10,000 a year. Is that what we've been doing? Except last year we gave an extra 5.
That's the exact thing what I did.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Okay.
That's a digger.
There you go.
Thank you.
Got it, okay. All right, good.
Yeah. It's miniature.
Extra, okay. Thank you.
You did good. You did good.
Thank you.
Not that.
Sure.
I was on the committee. Do I have any ability to make a comment about the committee's findings in the resolution?
Well, the resolution is the resolution.
But-
That can't,
But okay, because I was on the my name is Jill Kobernick. Can I speak? And I am a citizen of Muskego, and I was on the ad hoc committee.
Jill, could you turn the mic on?
yeah, turn the microphone. Why don't you wait till we get to it?
Oh,
I'll
wait,
give you an
okay,
opportunity.
thank you.
Because it's going to get confusing. Okay. Everybody have theirs? And, all right, just Jeff is missing. He can catch up. So the first thing I guess I just want to say is at the top, the background, which was very short, but that the one thing that I think everyone came away with is that it's a very needed program, service. It's very needed. The Medicaid rides are the #1 growing end of it. The original creation was the ADRC county funding rides, which are seniors and adults with disabilities, not Medicaid. Those are going down significantly, and again, that's in your packet that was provided by the county, and Muskego Senior Taxi certainly acknowledges that as well. So we just want to make clear, it's a service that definitely is needed and should continue. Specific terms, you see the bolded, those are what's in the resolution, number 31, 2019, also in the packet. Those were what the council approved as the things that the ad hoc committee should be searching for. So the specific terms and conditions of operating a taxi service for these specific citizens, and there are 5 bullet points, trying to keep it simple because I'm going to tell you, it was complicated beyond belief. There's a lot of government entities, a lot of fingers and hands involved. It was not easy to follow, but I think we all pretty much got there. So again, the ADRC county funding requires that rides travel within the county, with the exception of a few facilities that they allow to have as a destination outside of the county. I didn't spell those out because I didn't think it was important right now. Medicaid rides are provided and funded through third-party, referred to as managed care organizations, MCOs. And then drivers can be volunteer or paid, so each organization has one or the other, or sometimes a mix. And just for the record, Muskego Senior Taxi only has one paid driver. Private for nonprofit services are also available and receive county ride share, but not a lump sum. So that would be Best Cab provides rides throughout the county, and actually that was the #1 program. They give the most rides, the for-profit one. They do get the $5.25 share from the county. They just don't get the lump sum that the county provides. And again, these funds come from the federal to the states to the counties and then from there. So that was the first one. The next one was statistics and funding sources for the current program. Again, the ADRC, the lump sum is currently $11,500 that the county gives to each of the nonprofits within the county. They are looking at changing that to some degree because they've noticed that there's huge swings. Some give a lot more of those rides, some give a lot less, so they could end up prorating that. And then also the $5.25 per ride. And again, the ADRC rides for Muskego have significantly reduced from 198 rides per month in 2011 to basically half in 2018. And again, all supporting info is in the documentation handed out. Transported miles over and above the ADRC county funding is not calculated into the rider share based on the mileage. I think they might be working towards that, but it currently is not. Midpoint of the city is used for all rides in lieu of an actual per mile cost. The county is reevaluating the program, again, possibly reappropriating that $11,500. And that's about it. Rider share is the next bullet point, or fare. So that's obviously usually, well, that'll be what the rider pays. That's not covered in a subsidy. And again, many of the other taxi programs are using their cost per mile to determine that, or the MCOs. And I know that we fall short here in Muskego of getting the negotiated amount for MCO, and that is in part due to that, what the committee determined or learned is that Muskego Senior Taxi has the highest per mile, per ride cost than the others. And then MCOs, again, I just said that, they pay as negotiated. Grants that each of the nonprofits apply for, and then donations. And then the last item that was to be researched and provided is affiliated support services offered through Waukesha County, which is ARIS, Find a Ride Network, et cetera. I'm not going to read all those. Hopefully you took a look at them. The only one I want to highlight is that the county is telling me, basically, and I think the committee, they said that too, that they, by the county exec and above them, are trying to be more mindful of the use of and tracking of the grant funds. And so they did a study a while back and came up with what is needed is Find a Ride Network program, which is a one-call, one-click system. So that has dual services. One is provides the caller one phone number, which is really simplistic because there isn't just one transportation service. If you look down at the bottom of that second page, there are quite a few. And so the reason they want to do that, have that one call, is that, for instance, we'll use Muskego. If there isn't a car or a ride available in Muskego, they can quickly find them a ride through one of these other ones, rather than it just dies there and it can't happen. So that's one of them. And the other one is they have a software program that they can track all of these and enter every call and ride, and then that keeps track of the grant dollars that they're being used wisely and who they're accountable to. So then that does take us down to the last bullet point, which is other ride programs, and they're all listed below. There's one in the bullet, there's several in the bullet point, and those are the ones in the county, the Elm Brook, Lake Country, Muskego, which is Seniors on the Go, New Berlin, Four Boom, Oconomowoc, and then Best Cab, the only for-profit one. And some do cross over into other communities, including Muskego, to provide rides. The county, as well as Seniors on the Go, also has a handicap or wheelchair van. Okay, page 3. The final one was the best practices of Waukesha County seniors and ambulatory adults with disabilities, and so most of them are pretty straightforward. First bullet point, efficient operation in support of maintaining the per mile cost low. I think that's just common sense. And Muskego Senior Taxi, of course, has the highest cost. The second bullet point is negotiating with MCOs for reimbursement. And at this time, Muskego Senior Taxi does not get the full reimbursement, and it looks like most of the others are close to getting that. And again, that may have to do with the per ride or per mile cost. Economy of scale, such as branching out or consolidation, also can reduce the per mile cost. Providing handicap van service provides a needed service, and we learned it generates revenue. The Muskego Seniors on the Go it has been referenced frequently by various Muskego Senior Taxi Board members. So we had them come in and do a presentation. You'll see the full minutes from that presentation. Our two county supervisors, and we also have Mary Smith with Waukesha County ADRC on the committee, so they were present. And they do have the lowest or low per mile per cost. What they're able to do, though, is very well define what that cost is and communicate that when they're negotiating with the MCOs. They just have that information very readily at their fingertips. Then they also branched out into the handicap van, which is, I guess, a growing need. And it turns out that also provides some revenue, helping that bottom line. And avoiding branching out, growing their service area significantly helps with, it's that economy of its scale, and they have far less dead miles because it's the dead miles that they refer to as the killer, what ends up costing you a lot, costing the program a lot of money. So, Resolution 165, 2008 is also in the packet. That was the origination where it was the taxi group anticipated being self-sufficient by 2010 with 250 rides per month. Just reading through, I don't want to have to read everything. Oh, and then also came up at the last meeting is this Muskego Senior Taxi reached out to find out what other municipalities donated, and I also had reached out, or should say Christine from my office did, and Village of Elmbrook contributes, well, I should start with Elmbrook and Town of Brookfield and City of Brookfield, is my understanding, is a joint program. And Elmbrook provides $1,600, Town of Brookfield $2,000, City of Brookfield $16,000. And then City of New Berlin does $2,500. And I know that it was said by our Muskego Senior Taxi that they liken themselves to the Elmbrook and Town of Brookfield programs, size-wise and everything. Then in finale, Waukesha County is reevaluating via county supervisors and Mary Smith, the ADRC grant funding. Again, launched the Find a Ride Network, the One Call, One Click system. It's a pilot program in Menominee Falls right now, but they anticipate that to grow. I'm not going to reiterate that. And they are looking at economy of scale and the entire program and funding also, and wanted us to know that. So with that, I will open it. First of all, Jill, do you want to come up and add anything?
I just,
Is it on now?
Is that mic on?
it's on. Talk closer. Okay, I was on the ad hoc committee, and I welcomed and embraced the opportunity to be on this committee. To be honest,
I don't think it's
I
on.
am very concerned about that this report. I think it was a fact-finding, and I'm curious as to, is this a resolution? We did not as a committee get this information until it was posted on the agenda, and I believe that some of the information in the agenda, or in this report, is not quite accurate. I think there are some things that
Can you report
should
on
be
those?
redressed. I can.
Okay.
And I also believe that there's a lot of information that possibly we could investigate further, and I think that this committee may benefit, or the council may benefit from hearing more information to get just even a more clear picture. As you mentioned earlier, it's very complex. It's obviously, there's tons of information and there's lots of agencies. So like, for example, the Muskego Senior Taxi is reported in here to be the highest cost per ride per mile. Now, are those two different things? And I don't think that's a very clear picture. And when we provided our quarterly, I guess, where did that number, I guess I wasn't seeing where that number came from.
I'm going to defer to Kevin because he and Mary did the math.
Yeah, the cost per mile,
And Mary from the county is the one who presented that.
Right.
And
we had some discrepancy in terms of that information too.
but
this was
the
based
information that was in discrepancy had nothing to do with the
Okay,
So-
but is it per ride or per mile?
per mile and per ride equate to the same.
well,
Go ahead, Kevin.
The per mile, this is based on the P&L, so it's based on the accurate information and the narrative that was provided, comes out to $2.17 per mile. The cost per ride, and again, there was some wide information on this. Neil had provided some information at the board meeting that I had a chance to go to as far as the number of miles per ride, and it was like 30 miles a ride or whatever. And based on that, the cost per ride is like $26.24. What it boils down to is that every person who steps in the cab, we lose about $10.31. If you compare that to the McGonigal numbers that the gentleman provided us all with, they're on the profit side of it.
True, but in our data, I know we reported our first quarter and our second quarter from the CAP. And our first quarter was high because of weather conditions being we were closed down for numerous days, and I believe.
This is just 2018. This is just based on
Oh,
all
based
the numbers from
2018.
2018.
Okay, because
Yeah.
technically, this year, our numbers are lower in terms of than McGuanago if you take our first and second quarter. But regardless of that, I think too, is that McGuanago are able to be more profitable in terms of their ridership, because if you look at their information, they are also associated with the school district, and they are getting they have a contract with the school district, which we do not. And if you look at their ridership, which is in that information in the notes from the city meetings or the ad hoc committee, I believe if you compare during their school rides versus their summer cost, there's a huge difference there because they're getting a lot of the school funding for their transportation. And we all would agree that they get more funding from the non-ambulatory service. But we also know that we looked into that, as we mentioned in our committee, saying that there was fewer requests for non-ambulatory service, and then we believe that it would be more cost-effective to defer that to a service that has that capacity, because having a van with wheelchair accessibility is super expensive, and that our program, I think McGuanago's comparison, they're very business mindset, and I think they have some awesome concepts that they use to provide their service and efficient. They provide service for the whole county. We're more of a service mindset, I think, and I think that's not really reflected here, and that our service is to our community more so than countywide.
But McGuanago also participates in our community.
Correct, but we still provide, I mean, we do not turn away customers for us. We're holding our capacity as the cap. And I guess I just feel that this report was not presented to the members on the board to look at or maybe discuss prior to being on this agenda. And I guess that would, in my mind, feel that there possibly could have been some clarification with this report before it was presented. And I guess that's just, my conscience is saying that had we gotten this prior to this meeting, maybe we could have clarified these things and made it more transparent.
I just think it's all factual. It's everything we discussed. It's all in the minutes, too.
But
So-
it is, but for example, Farn hasn't even started yet, and it's not proven, and it's just starting in,
No, it says in here it just started.
September
So we're clear.
1st.
It just started.
okay,
It's a
but
pilot
it's
program.
not proven.
Right.
And it's also has a different spin on it. So I just feel that this information would have been helpful to discuss as a committee.
And I appreciate that you recognize that McGuanago has some great.
They do.
And I know that
Absolutely, to learn.
he's offered for years, and he offers it again that day to meet with
But
your
again,
program and go through it and help you for what you do, even though it may be a
Absolutely.
little different than what he does.
And I do think it would be beneficial for us to hear possibly how Elmbrook and the Brookfield, program works to glean more information also. So I think there is some real positive insight that we could gain from maybe exploring a little bit further. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
One thing that I'd like to mention is that, like any other program, Medicare, for example,
Medicaid.
or Medicaid, you've got this omnibus program, and it's broken down into many, many different programs within the omnibus program. And it becomes very inefficient at that point in time because it's broken down to the nth degree. For example, some of the ride providers all use Medicare money. They use it differently, but it's all the same money. Some are more efficient than others. Go ahead, Joe.
And in addition to that, I think that is one of the misconceptions, is because we do negotiate with the MCOs. We try. We may not get the same deal as McGuanago, but it's not as if we're not trying to negotiate the lowest fares with them. And again, as you're saying, it's super complex. There's
is, yeah.
numerous organizations that you have to negotiate with, and every program is different, and every individual has a different outlook as to how that service is going to benefit them and how they're going to use their money. So it is an amazing complex system. And the other thing is, I think one of the things that I felt a little disappointed also is that there hasn't been really any, there are a lot of riders in Muskego who are very happy with the service and testimonials to say that, you know, we're doing an amazing service. Can we be more efficient? And that's what we would strive for. But it is very difficult given all of the complexities. Even with the ADRC, it reflects in here that we've lost riders that are qualifying for that, or that our ridership is down from that. Understandable, that's not our only ridership. In fact, that will vary during the years depending upon who's receiving those benefits. Not every person who's on SSI or SSDI, or the funding, is going to get that break from ADRC because they might not know about it, or they just might not need the rides in that organization, but someone with an MCO might need a ride every single day to go to a job. So I just think sometimes it's going to vary, and I don't think it is a negative reflection that we don't have as many supported rides through the ADRC. It's just kind of how it falls.
Correct, and that's why it puts in here, it's needed. The Medicaid rides are needed. Nobody's questioning. The whole service is needed.
Right.
But it is about being more efficient, because when the MCOs negotiate and they see the other ones are less cost per mile, per ride, however, whichever term you want to use, it would be hard for them to say, well, for this one, we're going to pay them more because their cost is higher. I think that's where the efficiency has to come in.
And I think we're pretty comparable. And, you know, those are the things maybe obviously we can always improve. There's no doubt that we're not here to make it as best as we can, with as many tools as we can. So, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Could I jump in on this?
You can jump in.
Okay. I'm kind of disappointed in the reports, in the fact that it only points at one other taxi. I believe that since Elmbrook is very much like ours, they should have been here and make a full presentation of how they operate, since it's so much like ours. I call for the ad hoc committee to have another meeting and go back and look at that. Because they're the ones we should be comparing for best practices. They're like us. The McGonigal one is much different than ours in many, many ways. And it's not a fair comparison to compare the Muskego operation to that operation. The Elmbrook operation has been in existence since 1993, to my understanding. The Elmbrook operation operates 4 cars. We're operating 5. The Elmbrook operation has similarities in the hours they present themselves, and they operate with about the same budget, as my understanding. So I think it would be very interesting to hear a complete review of them before we would make a decision on how we're operating.
Well, just from an ADRC standpoint, John, is that we gave 1,327 rides in 2018. Elmbrook gave 9,263 rides in that same period of time. It's very hard to compare someone that's so much larger.
That's why I'd like to hear what they're doing.
I'm going to go to the 5,000 in that period, so we're comparing to them.
Yeah.
So you got the same theory going on, Kevin.
Well, that's double McGonigal.
And McGonigal uses tax dollars only differently from our tax dollars because they're getting it from the school district.
School district.
No, they're covering just the rides for the school. They're not
They're
using.
getting tax dollars from the school district. That's the bottom line. It's not.
No,
It's not in
no.
here anywhere. It's not listed. I find all the negatives listed. I don't see any positives listed.
Alderman Wolf, I have to clarify. The school
Find out.
districts, wait,
That's how I feel.
this is about fact-finding.
Doesn't
The
matter.
school, it does.
It's about the community and taking care of
Alderman Wolf,
It's about
please.
the elderly.
You spoke. I need to respond. School districts are required by law that they have to give rides to kids. So this was a service that they chose over a bus or something else. They have to do it. So they're paying for it one way or the other. They're paying their cost to do it. They just chose that service.
That'll lower the cost.
So it's not
per
an
ride.
extra,
That'll lower the cost per
thing.
ride. That slants our costs. It's obvious.
anyone else?
When you put more money in from a different pie, it changes the outcome.
And certainly if you keep reducing, if the city keeps putting more funding in, all those other ones will do less because it's so much easier to go to the Muskego taxpayers.
You know what's really difficult is that we get all this paperwork at the meeting and we're supposed to make a decision. It's fine, you know all about it, Kevin, that's great, but We
Well,
get all
this
this
was-
paperwork,
it was
This is-
posted
and we're
with the
supposed to go
agenda.
through
It was
it right now.
posted with the
And
agenda.
we're-
It was posted with the agenda.
Yeah, it was on the agenda.
All this is in there?
Not everything, it was,
Okay,
but the
that's my
memo
point.
that
That's exactly what
recapped
I
it.
said.
Well, you
I
want to...
don't have
Would
time
you,
to read
would you
this all
prefer,
over the
Alderman
meeting.
Wolf, would you prefer to divert this to the next meeting? So you have more time?
We can keep going, but maybe I will want to divert it to the next meeting. You know, you throw all this at it, just tell your real facts. What do you want? You want to get rid of senior taxi? Tell us that, and
No,
and we'll
you
know where
know,
you're at.
that's a very emotional statement.
Nope.
No
I
one
wanna know
wants to
what-
get
I
rid
want to know
of,
what this whole procedure's about. You want to keep it, or you want to get rid of it? That's what I want to know.
we want to keep the program. We want the service.
That's what I
We
want
want
there.
the service for the seniors. No one once has ever talked about getting rid of the program. And it says it at the very beginning of that little recap. The program is absolutely, the service is needed. How it's delivered and at what cost and what efficiency is the question of what the taxpayers
I'm
should
glad
be
to hear
funding
that.
in donation. Alderman Madden?
I'm glad to
Okay,
hear
if we
that.
can, if we can just wind this up a
Yeah.
little bit. My concern has always been from the beginning, and it is today, we're using tax dollars. When we spend tax dollars, everybody on this council's salary is open to the public. You know everything everybody in this city makes. It's open information because we're dealing with tax dollars. Something came up in a report that I got that shows that there is a person who's getting a 15% bonus on a quarterly basis. And I've asked for details about that bonus 3 times. And I know Kevin also has asked for details on that bonus, and we've not been able to obtain it. We're looking for ways to make the taxi more efficient, not get rid of it. We don't want to get rid of the senior taxi. They're a huge asset to this community. We just want to make it work where we don't have to use tax dollars to support it. When we talk about Elm Grove, they get $1,600. That's
They have a lot of riders, though, so that's
I
a slant.
understand.
That's a
But
slant.
that's, and that's.
We got to get to that point.
Right, exactly. And that's all I'm looking for.
I
just
agree with you
want us-
100%.
Yeah, I just want to get
Well,
this
that's
under
why I'm asking
control.
that's why I'm asking for a complete review of what Elmbrook does. And I think we should reconvene the ad hoc committee and search that out.
Well, one of the things I'm not sure, maybe the mayor can clarify, we are also talking about budgets. And we have to determine what's going to happen with this budget. And I don't know how long we can put it off before we make that decision either.
Well, I'd like to point out the county is actually revaluing everything, and so I would suggest we do the 5,000 that we've been doing, and then gets a report back from the county in 6 months. And if you still want to look at those other programs, we can do that as well.
There's plenty of time.
Can I make a comment?
Certainly.
The numbers that you're all comparing are the numbers that you have from ADRC. And again, kind of like Jill, it would have been nice if a little more research was done into those managed care numbers, like you said. So those numbers reflect the ADRC ridership. Some of those organizations have a very low, most of them are a little bit lower, I think, on managed care. But again, the research hasn't been completed. Like Jill said, we had a bad first quarter and last quarter last year because of snow. You all know what the weather was. I heard you talk about your budget being affected. This past quarter, we're at $1.19 a mile, and I think it was
260 or something Kevin said, right?
yeah. I think you reported that McWanago was at $1.49. To say that we are the highest, if you compare just to McWanago, we're not the highest. And I don't think that the other taxis were contacted to find out what their efficiency is per mile, and that would have prevented that sort of a statement that we're higher than all of them.
And that's correct, and that's because many of the board members for Muskego Senior Taxi kept referencing seniors on the go in McWanago. So that's why we reached out. But we can certainly look at more, but the bottom line is it's really a county overall. The Medicaid highest number of rides provided by Muskego, and I don't know what that mix is for the other ones.
And one
But
one
that's a
thing.
that's a philosophical thing, though, too. Medicaid, you've got to be careful with that if we're going to start funding Medicaid things in general. I just want you to be aware. But I think we should give the county the opportunity. They've learned a lot, and it started before this because they did tell me that's why they got into this Find a Ride network. They have pressure from higher up, too, that they have to be very accountable for all these grant funds. And so they were grateful that that they learned all the things that they did. And so, again, between two county supervisors and the ADRC person at the county, they are relooking at everything, and they would like time to talk back. They're bringing Jack from Muskego to a meeting to learn a lot more about the efficiencies, because it was phenomenal. They were so impressed at how that operation is.
And you had asked during one of the ad hoc committee meetings why the ADRC rides are lower. And I could just tell you from my experience what I'm seeing, but also what occurred to me is the first year I started, and I think it was you I asked, Kim, the rules had changed. Before me, there was able to be, you would be able to pull a mailing list of just seniors. And I was told I couldn't do that anymore, that the rules had changed. So we have not been doing the mailings to senior citizens. Just a comment. So, if you all can find a way to help us to communicate to seniors, that would be, again, I think something that you could contribute to help us have that volume of older people in addition to managed care folks. But we worked very hard to grow the managed care, to expand our volume and bring and have the shared costs so that we could continue providing the service to seniors. So that was an intentional effort to work with social workers and those folks to, make sure that that we can offer that.
And those are the ones that fall short of the funding. And if you see in that packet, the county graciously provided that long list of all the Medicaid rides that are available programs. So I'm not saying we don't do it, but we don't have to do them all.
No, but they live right in our community. We're only dealing with the folks, our
Understood.
own residents and very,
Is
border
that an overlap?
communities.
Is that an overlap with what we do?
I don't understand the
Those other providers,
question.
is that an overlap with what we do, or is that actually taking people in our community and?
We're just taking people in our community, right? We're serving the people here.
Correct. Understood. But these programs, they do that too. So
Yes.
just so you know, they all do. So
Well, I
there's-
think we find as we dig into this that all of the taxis that are existing across the county have overlaps
Right.
in various ways.
Right,
And
and then
one of the
unfortunately,
things-
that's what becomes inefficient because of the dead rides and so on and so forth. So that's just one thing.
But the dead rides are actually something that
Okay.
result because he is going to Walworth County and further places. There are only 8,000
Right.
people in Muskego, so he created the dead miles by choosing to expand, and he was actually looking.
No, he's eliminating dead miles by expanding, and the county sees
He's
that, and they're
expanding
very
the
interested
coverage.
in that program. So, and I'd like to ask you
Yeah,
to sit now
sure,
because they
sure.
have to discuss. Thank you, though.
I have a question, though, in regards to the number of rides. I'm kind of surprised we're so much lower than everybody else. Is that just the ADRC rides?
Yeah, just the ADRC.
So what would be a more accurate number compared to everybody else? Is there a way to?
Well, we have that all in the county stuff. I didn't bring
Several
all
are
of that.
similar. Again, I don't think a lot of detailed information is here, because I talked to some
With-
that recently that are very similar to our
With all due respect, we would have to get that from the county,
Okay.
so, to have accurate information. So
Yeah, 'cause-
if that. They would give you the ADRC rides, correct? Well, correct. We understand, I think
How many total rides, I guess? How many rides are we giving? Because
they gave 7,000 in the year, last year, our Muskego Senior Taxi, total. Of that, 1,300 roughly were the ADRC. That's not in question. And the Medicaid rides are certainly needed rides. That's not a question.
I was just questioning about the numbers, because I was surprised at how much lower we are. My thought would be if we can get more riders, the cost, per ride per mile will go down. So
Well, that was one of the reasons behind the committee, I think,
Right.
is that I don't see us as a adversary. I
Exactly.
saw us as a fact-seeking program to assist the senior taxi in making this work.
Because when I
If
see
you-
these low numbers, I'm questioning, are we reaching everybody that we can?
Because we did, and I
You don't
can
run
give
the
you, I can
program.
give you the breakdown. ADRC was
Well, when I-
1,339 rides, and this is based on a document that was provided to me by the senior taxi. Community care was 2,119 rides. IR, which is Iris, was 2,154 rides. DVR, which I think is a machine, no, what is that? I don't, yeah. That was 254 rides.
Yeah.
Care Wisconsin was 452, and the individual paid fares were 57, for a total of 6,375 rides that were given last year, and that's based on this report that was given to me.
Okay.
Well, and that's why, in respect to that, that's why the county is taking a look at it, because they're realizing that what McWanago is doing is something that can branch countywide. You eliminate dead miles and that economy of scale. So, I mean, that's just one thing that they're going to be looking at, but they'll look at all of them.
Yeah.
But they understand, everybody understands the Medicaid people, riders, they need a ride. And there are so many programs for that as well, besides just here, but they're needed.
My take on this whole thing, for what it's worth, is, and I started this a little before, you got to consolidate this into one package for Waukesha County. It takes care of the inefficiencies. It eliminates the dead miles because you can pass a car from location to location, and you can still serve your own public by doing this. I think McWanago's got a good idea where they are creating satellites. They created a satellite in Waukesha, I believe, to eliminate those dead miles, and they can do the same thing here. If it's going to work, great. If it doesn't work, it's worth a try to take a look at it. So I have to agree with what the mayor says. Let's fund this at $5,000. Let's not eliminate the funding. Let's fund it at $5,000. Take a look, see what's going to happen with the consolidation through the county. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's worth a try, for what it's worth.
Did you want to put that in a motion?
So moved.
Second that.
Is there any other discussion on funding 5,000?
How much do we normally give? How much do we normally? 10,000?
We normally gave 0,
Well, I thought it said
and then we
10,000.
went to 5,000. And then there was a one-time additional 10,000, which was a over 400% increase, but for the 1 year.
What is this here that you guys handed out in 2008? $10,000.
That was the original resolution, and it was a $10,000 seed money for them to become self-sufficient.
And then it was 5,000 a year after?
No, there was nothing for a number of years. And then it was 5,000,
And then last
some
year we
years, and then-
approved extra money? What's that?
then it became, well, it wasn't inserted in the budget automatically. It got there later.
Right, well, we came every year, Dan and I
Correct,
came to the finance meetings to ask for the 5,000.
correct.
Right, it was put into the budget, but Mayor Johnson was mayor.
Just a clarification point. It's my understanding that what we've been doing is not wrong.
No one's saying that.
Yeah. And so therefore the question, can money be given? Can there be a donation to such entities as this? The answer is purely yes, it can happen. And in fact, we can see that the others are doing it too.
And this year, they're asking for 15,000?
No.
Is that correct? And that's what we gave you last year, because we gave the extra money at the end of the year?
Right.
And if that money is reduced down to 5,000, is that going to affect the budget for you guys? I mean, what is that going to do for you?
And Alderman Wolf?
Sure. Sure. I mean, what, are you going to be, are you in a negative already right now?
No, we're not. And I just want I'm surprised that I reported $1.19, much lower than what was reported from Muskego, and everybody's still saying we need to be more efficient by going countywide.
not everybody.
We have we have a wonderful, beautiful community that volunteers. We have 30 drivers, which is what makes us so efficient and
they can continue on.
community-oriented.
Because
Pardon me?
they could continue on. That would never stop them from having to do that.
But if we're
just
already
point that out.
at $1.19, after years of becoming more and more efficient and increasing what we ask for from the managed care contracts, I don't understand why you're recommending that we
The facts don't
go
show
beyond.
$1.19, though. I know you say that tonight.
Well,
but-
Well, it only shows what you
I
got.
don't,
let's-
you didn't
I don't wanna get into
calculate
all
the
of
new
that.
numbers that we gave at the ad hoc
Alderman, I
committee
really
meeting.
would prefer that you have your conversation here.
Just what
So we
would
won't get
what
done.
would the $10,000, you're running in a negative, is that going to, how's that going to affect the?
Well, we actually have, as I had mentioned earlier, we are very close to self-sufficiency. What is an unknown in a nonprofit, but it's part of a nonprofit business, is what kind of grant dollars you're going to get from year to year. So that gives us our base. So that's what we're looking for from the city, just like when it started, is that every year we get our base and we work from there.
The way I look at it is that if we gave them $25,000, that'd be $1 a person to help take care of the seniors in the area. So if we do 15,000, that's off the top of my head, I'm gonna say 60 cents a person. We gave the extra 10,000 last year, it was 30 cents a person more in the community of 25,000 people. Not to pick on anybody else in the budget, but we can go through and look at things where we're paying a lot more than 30 cents a person or 60 cents a person in the budget consistently, and they're asking for more every year as well. The senior taxis costs have not gone down since they started. Matter of fact, I don't think my costs have gone down, the cost of living, since I've started working and own a house and whatever else. So there's a lot of things going on, and in my opinion, I said when I look at this, I just see the negatives on these things. I see a very small piece of paper. You call them facts. And then I get a bunch of extra paperwork after this, and nobody wants to hear how her ridership is down to $1.19 right now. So I don't have a problem in taking care of the seniors in this community. And if you guys feel that it's necessary, that you feel tax dollars are more important not to take care of the seniors in this committee, that's how you're going to vote on this, and that's how it's going to be portrayed. That's what you want to do, and that's how I look at it.
Thank you. Alderman Madden?
Alderman Wolf, I'm just kind of shocked because I remember you last year were a little upset by that $15,000 request and were very adamant that it was one time only. My concern is I do sit on the board. I know they've got a pretty healthy balance in the bank right now, and giving them money just in case doesn't make a lot of sense to me when we heard from our finance director tonight that we're running a thin line this year.
Well, if it's just in case, I agree with you 100%. I mean, if they need the money, that's what I want to find out. If it's just in case, I'm not sure that we need to do that. And I think that, even late in the series last year, they can always come back to us and we can try to help them out somehow throughout the year. And I did say that it was one time only and we'll put a Band-Aid on it and fix it to help them get going. But that's the beauty about being up here. You can change your mind. And you can do the right thing. And sometimes money, it's not always about money. It's about the right thing, And I definitely want to keep this program going. And I hate to tell you all, but you're not getting younger. And I hope you don't need a senior taxi. And I hope their budget's there to help you when they do. So that's my point of view. So.
Okay, Alderman Wolf, I agree with one thing you said is that we should see how the budget plays out and see how things work for them. So I don't recommend all of it. The other thing I need to inform you is our net new growth is less than it has been. So it's going to be a tough budget. We're at only 1.05% net new growth. That's going to be a real challenge for budget. But I would still suggest the $5,000 and revisit it in 6 months.
And Karen, can I just ask, did anything change with the bank account from the last meeting? You still have available funds? I think it was at like 22,000, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Part of that is earmarked for a contingency fund that many grants that we write for require that. We have a contingency fund.
And I recall that's what the 10,000 last year was
right,
for,
and I
to
understand that,
hold
and
it
that's
there.
why you've got that balance. But for us to keep increasing it is hurting the city, even though. Well, and I still haven't found out about the 15% bonus. I mean, I don't understand that. I've never heard of a 15% quarterly bonus from anybody.
Taking 25% of net profits.
And
But not on ordinary income.
well, I didn't know that when Jack was doing it, or I'd have asked it then as well. It just, I mean, you can see what we all make, and we ask where the money is going for a reason, because you're asking for three
I
times
know.
what you were
Okay.
getting. And we're not getting answers, and some of the answers we get are kind of confusing. So I'm just looking for details.
Okay, we need to move on.
Maybe
So
we
we
need,
have a,
maybe we need to review what other people make in this industry as well.
okay, and that could be something for the future. So the motion on the table is for 5,000 right now and to look again in 6 months.
Are we actually working on the budget right now?
Yes, we are. It's coming to you at the next meeting.
Right.
Oh.
No, because we're preparing it right now, and I need something to put in.
Yeah, we got to put it in.
Whatever you want, it doesn't matter. We got to approve it in November or whenever we do anyway.
No, we take your recommendations. So the recommendation
But we can always change
in
that.
motion right now on the table
Not a
is
100%
$5,000, and we'll review again in 6 months. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand, we can't see. 3. All those against? It fails. So nothing goes
Hope
in.
it's not your projects that need done next year that we won't have the
You know,
money
we're
for.
missing an alderman.
So
We can always
this will be
revisit
at the next meeting.
We can always revisit this and bring it back up. We're missing an alderman that could have a vote on this. So what is our options, Mr. Attorney?
You can bring it up, at the next meeting. You can defer this.
Okay, I'd like this to be brought up at the next meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Could I ask one last question? I have your financial numbers from the first quarter, and in fact, I've got them for the first half. Can you give me the miles? I don't know about miles and rides. If you can,
I told you 15 and a half is the average ride. That's what you're
could you give me the number of rides and the number of miles? For the
first half of the year.
First half of the year. Thank you. Okay.
Did you still want that payroll information that we haven't received?
We'd sure like to get that too.
We would like to have that as well.
Yep.
The payroll detail.
And-
Thank you.
And I
For
I have
18 and 19.
I have one last question as well. John brought up doing another ad hoc committee, and I think it was just left out in the open. I don't know where we are on that. What are we supposed to do about that?
Well, the resolution concluded it, so we would have to bring back.
No, because he
No.
asked that before all that, so I'm asking the attorney what was the legal side of that.
Point of order, we can ask for that.
Yeah, I was just going to.
You already asked for it,
I asked for it.
Yeah, he did.
and nothing
One of the
happened.
first parts of the discussion, so I don't know where we at. I just want to make sure everything's done properly. So,
Does that come out like
if
a
somebody
motion?
asks for something, we should take care of that.
Right.
Does that come in the form of a
You
motion?
could do it in the
Yeah, one alderman can't just say.
Make a
No,
motion.
that's why I'm asking, how does that work?
Yeah, I guess we're both asking for the parliamentary correction on that.
So what are you trying to do, though?
Make a motion that we have a continuation of the ad hoc committee to get a review, especially of Elmbrook.
That's what he asked before, and it just
He's
stayed out in
made
the
a
open.
motion, though, so.
I'll second it then.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Why don't you raise your hands?
Raise your hands. We can't see. 2, 3, 4. Opposed?
Put those on.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed?
I'm just going to abstain.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, 2 abstentions.
Okay.
Okay,
So hold on now, what is that? There's going to be an ad hoc.
there's going to be
We're
more
continuing the-
we're continuing it.
Currently ad hoc, and but the
Well, at least that
resolution-
committee of the whole. I mean, I don't know, we might have to go to council.
Well, the resolution
Yeah.
ended, though, so we're going
So
to,
we'll,
add on to that resolution?
We'll have to.
Yeah.
We'll have to, it'll have to come back in a formal,
The resolution, or
it'll have to come back
So
formally.
it'll just come back,
as a new resolution?
right.
Okay.
So who's gonna, do you
Jeff and I will
assign,
work on
but
it.
will you be assigning that committee, or is
I think
the
it's
four
just
that
a
want it?
Same
gonna-
one.
It's just
Why-
a continuance.
My motion was for continuation
we'll
of this
see.
committee.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll bring, it's got to come back in a resolution anyhow, so, okay. Moving on. Patients of Little Muskego Lake District, thank you. Next item is discussion regarding proposed resolution for Little Muskego Lake District that our attorney is now handing out. This was at your direction, council. Because when we located, kind of by accident, but not really, a resolution, an older one that
Not enough whereas.
had a lot of, we have to have just one meeting here, folks. It had a lot of misinformation, and you did ask that John and I meet with the president of the Lake District, and we did, Steve Olson, and so we went through everything, and so it clarifies the responsibilities, but primarily just ties it to the state statute instead of kind of cherry picking and just listing a few things, because that can be misunderstood then. And then the more notable thing is the paying per parcel, as the committee of the whole recommended, and working at some kind of phasing in of that, which we asked the Lake District and don't know. Did you come up with anything? Can you come up to the microphone, though?
Sure.
This is Steve Olson.
Yeah, Steve Olson, I'm the president of the Lake District. So thank you. I really didn't want you to bring this up, but thank you for putting the time and effort into it. When we had our meeting, we had a discussion that I was unaware that we were moving on to this quick. You just said by the end of the year you were trying to get this all resolved.
So we said budget was in August.
So
I know
that
John
kind
said it too.
That kind of, I can go back to my notes, but anyway, it's a little surprising that you're discussing it today. With that being said, I'm happy that you're giving me the time to talk. From the resolution discussions that we had, most of the items that you're talking about are just setting it up to state statute, which I don't think we really oppose any of that stuff. It's just to clean up language, add a few procedural things. I think those are good ideas, and I don't really have much to argue with that. It really comes down to the funding, and after watching what you did to these guys, it was very interesting, and I think they have a very good cause. So, anything that you can do to help them out, I think, is a very good thing. In the previous resolution that was out there, the council at the time viewed the lake as a valuable asset to the community. They looked at it as something that draws people, that provides revenue, that provides recreation to the community, and in addition to tax dollars. They also view it as something that provides a good tax base. And there's some jobs that we provide too for a lot of the kids around the city. And so in the past, what they've done is they've funded it to 15% of the budget. Not asking for anything extra, just asking to maintain what was done then. The Lake District uses that. We're kind of a unique, as I look at it, is that as the Lake District is set up, the residents are the ones who are funding 85% of this whole thing. But it's not only for their benefit, it's obviously for the whole community. It's for everybody outside the community. It's for all the visitors that come in. And so we're providing an additional service and funding it and committed to it that everybody benefits from. And so I think it's a very valuable resource, as most of our logos show. We promote the lakes as being something to draw people here. One of the things that was done, there was a big research project done about Delavan Lake. And in that research study by the University of Wisconsin, they talked about what clean water does to the city and what it does to the value. So they talked about, how people spend as property owners to increase spending for a city, how visitors coming in spend, and they buy, whether that's their fishing license at the local gas station or their beer at the liquor store. It also increases the property values. And obviously, you guys know with property values comes the tax base that you guys have. And in just a simple little number, the value of the properties, if you took those properties and didn't have a thriving lake, would probably be something $2 million less in revenue to you guys, or the city, I shouldn't say you guys personally, to the city. So it's an easy tax revenue that you're being able to build your budget off of. If the lake wasn't funded to maintain the beauty the way it is, the navigation the way it is, so that people can swim in the lake, people can boat in the lake, clearly the values would go down. If it just became a weedy pond that nobody wanted to come and use like it used to be 20, 30 years ago. So there's been a lot of work put into it to make it a very valuable resource to the city. When we talk about the dollars and cents, like I had mentioned, the Lake District funds it to 85%. The other 15% is from the city. And we appreciate that, but I think in return, you get more than your 15%, like I had mentioned with the tax dollar revenue. But when you look at everything else that comes in, that's a small price to pay for one of the biggest assets in the lake or in the city. You look at the park system. The city's funding all the park systems, right? They pay for the maintenance and the work. When you look at some of the other lake districts, or not even lake districts, but lakes around the area, Nagawicki, Pewaukee, Lake LaBelle, Fowler Lake, Delavan Lake, those are all funded in some part by the city, either wholly operated by the city to maintain the weed cutting, maintain the chemical use, or in some part funded by it. So this isn't a unique situation that you guys are doing. This is something that is fairly common, and I think you have a very good vested interest in wanting to keep the lake beautiful.
Could you repeat those? Nagawicka?
Sure.
And who else?
Sure, Nagawicka, Pewaukee, Lake LaBelle, Fowler Lake, Delavan Lake.
Are those all cities or are they municipalities of other types, Steve?
They're done in different ways. Some is city funding, some is the sanitary district runs it and operates it. So it's a variable.
Yeah, and they're probably not all apples to apples, but we'll look at them.
No, they're not. I mean, they're done in different ways. But my point is that the city isn't walking away from it and not looking at it. They're an active participant in the beautification of the lake and the resource that they have. There was a good point made on the seniors. When you look at what we're asking for, it's about $1.50. And we're not asking for anything additional. As a matter of fact, it's a sliding scale. We as a management team, we adjust the budget. We try to run it as kind of like a nonprofit. We're not trying to build resources. We're not trying to get rid of resources. We're trying to run this thing as a net neutral. So some years it creeps up a couple bucks. Some years it creeps down a couple bucks. So we give back when we can. And last year we had a little bit of an extra bump, so we dropped it down substantially because of the drawdown, which we all went through that meeting before, so we don't need to rediscuss that. But we were able to save some money, and in return we gave money back, and you guys obviously funded at a lower level at that point. It's the same percentage, but the dollars, absolute dollars, go down. So there is advantage to you in your budget that it does.
You're saying tying it to the percentage definitely leaves the city fluctuating like the rest of the budget fluctuates for the district.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you done?
You just threw me off my roll.
Okay.
So anyway, the point being is that, I mean, you guys fund all kinds of things. The senior and disabled taxi ride, you do that. I mean, there's other people always asking for stuff. we're in the same situation. But there is a definite return to the city that far exceeds what your participation is. And so I think it's in everybody's best interest that we maintain the lake in the pristine fashion it is. And quite frankly, the quality of the lake has gone up substantially over the last 20 years. And we regularly hear comments from residents who are quite happy with it. As a side note, one of the other things that we have within our budget that I think is a very important item to the city is most people don't know that the fireworks that are done there at Idle Isle are funded by the lake residents with the Lake District. Now granted, the city is a participant to 15% of that value too, but we've committed to increase that budget. We actually doubled our spend on that last year based on recommendations we've heard from around the city, and people asked about having a little bit better show, and it's really nice, and everybody in the city comes around and loads up on the beach, and they sit around. I think most residents assume that that's just a city fireworks show, but it's not. It's something that the Lake District has funded for years and years and years, and we would surely love to continue to do that, and we have no intention of stop doing that. But like everybody, when you look at your budgets, and if our budget gets cut, then we have to look at reasons to cut our budget. And it's another piece that could potentially get hampered. And I don't think anybody wants to go down the road that there is no longer.
Yeah, all fireworks shows in municipalities are funded by sponsors.
Yeah.
Municipalities aren't paying for them.
I'm saying
so I just
how
wanna
it's
make that
done
clear.
now, and I think it's a small price to pay for a really nice thing for the city. And our role here in the city
You're sponsoring it.
is not what?
You're serving as the sponsor.
Yeah, and our role here in the city is not just to save money. It's to do the right thing with the money, and it's to also make things better for the residents. And I think obviously one of them that we do with parks, and we do with the pickleball court, which is also a very good thing. That thing gets used like crazy. Those are the decisions that we make. And these are the things that, when you have one of the biggest resources in the city, that shouldn't be neglected.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I want to narrow it down to really the discussion as directed by the council, but also our attorney will probably weigh in. We really need to, at minimum, get to where we pay for our 28 parcels per the state statute as they're charging. What you do above that is up to you. As it is this year, that amount would be, I'm just guessing because we didn't do it real well, close to, I don't know, $10,000. So, and this year, doing the 15%, we should have come in around 40, we're coming in at 40,000, I believe, in total. So that's a difference of 30,000. So you have to decide what that additional amount you would like us to insert into the budget. Unless you want us to just put the 28 parcels in, and when we bring the budget, you decide at the next meeting, like you're saying with the taxi too.
Well, just this discussion came up because we wanted to achieve some parity, and I think Rob is on board with that. We pay 5 times as much per parcel than the residents do. Just some comments from Steve. You mentioned lakes. We do have lakes. We have 3 of them. Big Muskego, Lake Danoon, and Little Muskego. We contribute nothing to the other 2 lakes. Nothing. Residents who lived on lakes would be foolish to let their lake go into a weed bed. I mean, it's their money, it's their equities. It's just not going to happen. So, again, parity is the issue here. I believe that we should be paying per parcel just like everyone else who lives on that lake.
I think when he was talking, he brought up quite a few good points. I mean, quality of life is huge. The point I started writing down when he was going through his list of statements there or whatever, the value of the lake, it kind of opens up my eyes a little bit, because I started thinking about the parks before he brought up the parks. We do fund the parks. How does that compare? That's the thing that came up in my mind. How do we compare that to the lake and the use for all the people for the lake? Do we compare that with the 15%, or do we compare it as a parcel, or how would we compare that? Because it really is kind of like a park, really. I mean, you have Idle Isle out there, and
Of course, we do pay a lot to Idle Isle. I mean, we
Right.
maintain the park.
Yeah, and if I can
but I'm just
clar-
saying, if you compare the two, how would we make a comparison to that? Because there is some type of comparison to that.
I would like to have Jeff respond. There's two ways that each lake district can charge. Assess front footage.
Oh, you mean,
Yes, and that's what you're talking about? They can
Well, I'm
either,
just saying- I'm talking about the quality of life that
Oh.
he made his comparison to
I'm
a
sorry.
park.
I misunderstood.
And really, we do treat the lake like a park. I mean, technically, anybody can use it. It's not theirs, it's not yours, it's
It's the
everybody's.
state's.
It's everybody's.
Waterways are
and-
owned by the state, by the people.
So it is kind of a park, and we do use it as a resource. I mean, he did a very good speech, if you ask me. It opened my eyes up to what we were trying to accomplish, and I understand what we're trying to accomplish as well, because it makes sense. We should be parceled out, but when you throw the factors in of the quality of life, how does that work? You're on
We
the Lake District.
maintain
Go.
the parks.
What's that?
The city maintains Idle Isle.
Idle Isle,
Yeah.
and all the inlets.
well, no, the property that we own, the 28 parcels.
Right.
Alderman Engelhardt, you had
Okay,
something?
I don't know how to best say this. There's, under the state statute that allows for lake districts, there's more than one format, and in our city with the 3 lakes, each lake district is formatted under a different part of that section. They're not comparable in many ways, but they are comparable in some ways. And each of our lakes is quite different from the other one, and the use of those lakes is quite different from each, other than the fact people swim, people boat, and so forth. But the volumes and so forth, I think, if we ask Chief how much time they spend on Little Muskego, it's got to be more than on the others.
Well, they have a boat there.
Right, so, I mean, we contribute a lot just in the time.
Right. Well, I'm just, for instance, there's differences. And so I think in our deliberations, we have to bear some things in mind that way too. The precedent of what we've had for Little Muskego Lake over the years has served us well. Don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, and I don't know if Sharon would be able to do that between now and the next meeting, but, and I don't certainly want to downplay the individuals that live on the lake, or the city's share would go up, even when you do the paying by our 28 parcels. That 10,000 that would get adjusted, that 10,000 is going to go up because that's just the nature of how it would be. And it's not a significant dollar amount for everyone on the lake, so I just want to make clear, it's not like a real gouge, but I just point that out. So what you have to decide tonight is a couple things. Either we need to move to the per parcel because that's the way they're charging. You can add on, that's fine, if that's what you choose. But that's what you should determine, or just the 28 parcels tonight, and like you did with the taxi, and we come to the next meeting, you determine what that added amount is you want to put in.
Point for consideration. If we adopt a resolution similar or like this is presented, would be proper to put into this resolution if we have any intentions of exceeding that amount in any way as supporting the lake?
Yes, it's in here.
Or do we need a separate resolution for that?
Nope, it's in here. We have it in here to add the
On
amount.
the
That's
I didn't read
there.
it close enough, I guess, there.
It's there. That's why I'm
Yeah.
telling you can either decide
Didn't see
tonight
it
or
till
at the
tonight
next
in front of
meeting.
us here.
And we'll at least put in the 28 parcels for now. Which way do you want to go? I need a motion one way or the other.
I'll make a motion that we put $10,000 over and above the parcel fees.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that? The motion is to pay the 28 parcels and an additional $10,000.
To clarify, that makes it about half of what it's been, correct?
Right.
Approximately, it sounds like.
Yeah, approximately.
numbers,
It just-
yeah.
in theory.
20, yes. Any discussion on that?
So last year, how much money did we give the Lake District?
40.
Well, that would be this year. It would be,
Okay.
I set it at 40,000. And this would have it at 20,
So we would pay
The
per
motion.
parcel, and then we would give an additional.
another 10.
And we'd be at half of what we were.
And again, you can wait till the next meeting and do like you do the taxi, just the 20 parcels, and understand that we'll come back, you'll make a decision at the next meeting. when you have the budget in front of you.
Okay, this resolution in this portion, then, if we're giving the extra 10, but then the resolution as written is going to show us lesser amounts in 21, 22.
That have to be changed.
Okay.
Because this is just this resolution has to come back to
Correct.
council. This
And
is
it can be
just-
amended on the floor
Right.
and everything, too.
Right, so it has to be
Okay.
changed.
This is committee of the whole. We can't actually pass a resolution, can we?
Correct.
You would go to council.
This is a
And it's
recommendation.
not on the
Oh, we're going to
agenda.
bring it back to another cow? Is that what you said?
Well, the resolution will go to council,
Council.
but we will be talking at COW again, too.
So with Kevin's motion, we're going to cut that budget in half, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to understand that.
So that's the motion on the table. If there's no more discussion, please again, raise your hand. All those in favor?
I'm going to go with that.
4? Those opposed? 2. So then we'll prepare the resolution accordingly. Thank you.
I just want to make sure we talk about it next meeting.
Okay. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming and waiting patiently. And at least we took you ahead of the other items, so. Okay, now we're going to continue with our budget items, capital budget 2020 continued. We have the police department, and the chief has been patiently waiting. Thank you. I think I
I'm
walked
trying
over
to sit
there.
down, it'll be easier for me with my paperwork. Try that. Okay. Which one would you like to discuss first, I guess? What's that?
Yeah, let's get the canine.
First,
Canine first, okay.
And what page are we going to?
that's going to be off the memo that was.
Oh, that's
in
right.
Finance.
Piece of paper somewhere.
Which I believe I printed and brought. I hope I did.
Should I make?
It's going to be in here probably.
Ready? Okay. Okay, what I'm proposing is that we would get a second canine or an additional canine. What we're running into is times are changing as far as drug arrests and things like that. And we are coming into, I don't know if you're familiar with methamphetamine. Within about the last year or so, we've been getting that into the city. It's showing up, it's here to stay. Things like methamphetamine, heroin, it's all in small quantity. You know, years ago, you'd find big baggies of cocaine or marijuana, stuff like that. Well, with methamphetamine, heroin, you're finding only minute amounts, and like in cars and stuff like that. So it's very difficult for officers to find, but it's very easy for a canine to find. And so the advantage to having an additional canine is we can do more enforcement with for drugs and things like that. I did looking up some of the statistics. About 20% of all our arrests involve drugs. So when you consider everything that we can arrest somebody for, 20% is a pretty high number. Okay. And, you know, these are the ones that we're getting, okay? With a canine, an additional canine, we would benefit from that. And, you know, obviously there's a drug problem in our society, and you know, arrests alone aren't going to solve that issue. However, we got to do our part. And that's what I am proposing, is that we do our part with this. One of the things that we have been doing is working to raise money for the second canine, and the money is coming in. I should mention also, one of the advantages to a second canine is Sirius is, I think he's 7 years old now, and so he is going to be probably in the next 2-3 years in need of retirement. And it takes a few years for a dog to get really effective at doing their job. So if we were to get a second canine now, by the time Sirius is ready to retire, we should have another canine that is up and running and very efficient at what he's doing. And and then we could, when Sirius retired, if we got another dog, we could keep the rotation going.
Yeah. Would we be in a space where we'd drop back to one after we would have to?
I would like to,
Or would we hope to
when
have two
Sirius
all the time
retires,
from
I would
then
like
on?
to keep a second one, yeah.
Yeah, so the goal would be 2 all the time from then on.
Right, and it would be staggering. The K-9 program, right now is costing the city nothing. Everything, well, other than a little bit of specialist pay, because that's part of the contract. All of the money for the dog, the vet bills, and things like that, that is all raised by the community through donations.
What about the vehicle?
The first vehicle we had was,
Because that's really the capital item that we'll be talking about.
right, the first vehicle that we have is covered. That one's covered by Impro. Okay. What I'm asking for today is the additional pay for a specialist position, because according to the police contract.
That we said is in the budget. This is capital. What do you need for a vehicle?
Okay, what I need for a vehicle, some of the money for the vehicle is already covered. The amount of money that I figured that I needed then when I typed this up was $62,000. That includes the vehicle, and all the equipment in that vehicle. However, since then, we've been told that we got another $10,000 coming in. And we are also doing a fundraiser, the Indian Motorcycle is doing a raffle, motorcycle raffle, and we will have some funding coming in for that. So the funding is continuing to come in for this. So essentially, what I typed up there for a second vehicle, $62,000, is a worst-case scenario. And in fact, just last week, we were promised $10,000 toward the program. So that number is going to continue to go down, and everything is, I guess, set to roll except for the money for the vehicle, because the money for the dog is already taken care of.
Okay, so the
What
request,
page is that on? Is that in here?
it isn't. It's in the
Can I
memo.
just ask for clarification? When you said it's in the 2020 budget, is that squad in operations? Is that where you placed it? Because I don't see it.
I don't see
Yes,
it.
in the,
In the capital
with
outlay.
replacements.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
So is that on one of these pages
So
here, Sharon?
the 62,000 is?
yes, that's what.
So that's why you're not seeing, okay, that's what's throwing us off.
Was there like equipment?
Okay.
I saw
Oh,
something
it should have been in capital and
So-
not in there.
No.
Vehicle
it's
replacement
fine.
37.5 is
But
what I.
that's fine.
75.
We're having the discussion now.
Okay, so do we need a motion on that and stuff then? Or not a motion, but a show of hands?
Can you
Because
please
it's not
clarify
with
what-
this.
what's,
What are we doing?
that's in
He's got it in operating.
operation instead of
In the
capital?
capital outlay within the operating budget, so it's not part of this
Not in our
document.
pack. Not in this. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
Yep.
So I guess,
So I guess
It
we
should be
can,
in this?
show of hands at least
show
to
of
support.
hands and-
Wait a minute,
Yeah,
Sharon,
look-
it should be in this?
Just,
Not necessarily. I guess what I'm looking for, relevant of where it is placed, is I'm looking for a show of hands to support acquiring another K-9 vehicle while the donations continue to come in and hopefully pay for the whole thing.
okay,
Can't promise that. So
are
show
we
of hands.
budgeting, and by saying this, we're putting it in the budget, but we have a chance for additional revenue of replacing.
To pay it back,
of paying it
correct,
back,
pay it off.
So it's
Mhm.
not a burden on the city.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
There's already some
Or a
commitment.
good
so-
part of it will not be a burden on the city is our
Correct.
goal, our
I
hope.
probably would transition this into the capital.
Yeah, she'll flip it, but that's okay.
Okay.
I'll see how.
Question
Well-
real quick, so when are you planning on getting the K-9 then, next year?
Actually, they have a K-9 available in next month, actually.
Okay,
In-
and then where is it trained?
In Campbellsport.
Okay,
Okay.
and then when will it be going in service then?
This vehicle would go into
Well,
service.
The K-9,
Oh, the K-9, we could get into service the end of the year here.
oh, the end of the year.
It's a couple months training. And, but the squad, what we would do in the meantime is, while they're running the training in Campbellsport, we would use a different vehicle that, to get up to the training and stuff like that. Or we would switch out with Sirius's vehicle. It's not ideal, but we can get by until we can get this new vehicle up and
So
running.
when you said it takes 2 years before basically the dog becomes efficient? That would be basically on-the-job training then, is that?
Yeah, there's constant on-the-job training. It's not that he's not efficient, but they become very proficient at what they do.
Okay, with that, a show of hands to support the investment in the K-9 vehicle. And that is unanimous. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Page,
13.
Is that in here?
so we're on page 13. The EMD Pro QA updated program.
Do you make some of this stuff look cheap?
Everybody's saying, what's that?
And I know exactly what that is. No, I don't. Go ahead.
Okay, what this is, we do emergency medical dispatch, and in fact, I'll segment into this. You know, we have a large population of seniors in here in our city, and we utilize this when we get rescue calls and stuff like this. What this is when they call dispatch, our dispatchers have right now it's kind of like a Rolodex, and they flip through this Rolodex, and it's all dependent in here on what the call is. They have to flip through this to figure out what the call is, and then give directions like medical. They can give CPR directions. They can give, you name it, whatever, on how to deal with this. And they do this while rescue is on the way and while the officers are on the way. And then when the officer or the rescue arrives, they're first responders trained in this, so then they take over at the scene, and then the dispatcher hangs up. So the way that it works now is it's a little bit cumbersome. It's actually quite cumbersome, because now you have a dispatcher who's on 911 talking to somebody who is, let's say, agitated or, highly emotional because their loved one is having some sort of a medical event. And they're trying to deal with them, and then they need to try to give them directions, medical directions on how to work with the patient that's on the phone. So the idea behind this Pro QA is this is a computer system. It's actually loaded onto the computer, and instead of them having to flip through various cards, what they do is they enter the stuff into the computer, and it pops up with questions they should ask of the person on the phone and different things like that. And then there's no flipping, because with the other system, if something changes, they have to flip through a whole bunch of cards, find the right one, and then go back toward it, or back with new directions. So with this, it automatically goes to ask the right questions. Plus, there's an interface available, so when they enter that information into this program, it also goes into our records management system, so we have a record of it in there. And what it does is it makes the process a lot smoother. And so then the idea being that it'll save time, it'll be more efficient. And one of the other requirements that we have is when we use this program, we have supervisors that monitor how they did with the program, and to make sure that we're following the protocol, things like that. Well, by using this program, this does a lot more of that monitoring of the protocol, so that we save a lot of time in the supervision of it, because it's already done automatically in the program. So that's the idea behind it. Of all of the community, let me get the number here exact. There are 38 PSAPs, public safety answering points, in the state of Wisconsin that are licensed to use EMD, and only 8 of them are using the manual card sets, which we are, and the other 30 are using the computerized Pro QA. So it's something that would make our emergency dispatching more effective, which equates to, helping our community. And that's why I'm going forward, asking for this.
Are there?
Page 13 under equipment.
Yes. Yep. Are there any questions?
Just a curious question. This is an upgrade of what you're already doing, in a sense.
Correct.
And then about how many incidents do we have to apply this kind of thing to what's the frequency or something like that, just for.
They apply emergency dispatch or emergency medical dispatching to all 911 calls that come in. There are some parameters where they do not. If let's say St. Luke's Medical Center calls in, then and they have doctors on scene, then they don't do it because there's medical staff.
So it's available on every 911. But
Yes,
yeah.
every 911 is available, and they go forward with the program.
Yeah.
The only time, there are a few parameters, like if you got an accident where there's multiple injured or something like that, then you can't do it because you can't address every single one of them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, any rescue call that comes in, they initiate this. Sometimes they have to stop, but they at least initiate to see if they can deliver the EMD.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, show of hands for this item in support. It's unanimous.
And Chief, was that 36911 put in there deliberately? That's all.
No. Thank you.
Just the price.
Okay, your next item, page 14, range target replacement.
Okay. We originally set up our range, I believe it was in 1999, and at that time, there's an actuator on our range targets. What that actuator does is it's run by an air compressor, and it makes the target flip, okay, so that it flips, and then it shows the target so that the officer can use the target for practice. Well, because they're 20 years old and exposed to the elements, some of them have gone bad. Well, actually, they've all pretty much gone bad. So what we have started to do, and we did some of it, and we'd like to finish it, is we've had built a little metal cover that goes over it, so it's not exposed to the elements. We didn't realize back when we had these in that they do better without being exposed type things. So what we would like to do is get new ones because they are going bad, and then have more of these covers built to put over top of them so that they would last longer. There are a lot of them that we cannot use right now because they are just shot. And then we would also like to the airline that powers them. We would like to replace that too. So essentially, we would upgrade and make it new to start. It's 20 years old. 20 years takes its toll on something, especially if it's outside exposed to the elements.
Thanks. Any questions? Okay, show of hands for this item. It's also unanimous. Takes us to page 15, ballistic plates and helmets with gas mask microphones.
Okay. What these are is our skit operators. That's our SWAT team. Their vests and their ballistic helmets expire in 2020. Okay, so now this becomes an officer safety issue. Obviously, we can't have our officers going into tactical situations with expired gear. That would be a bad practice. But that is replacing those, and this is ballistic plates and stuff. It's just something that they expire and then that we need to replace, and that's what this is. Now the gas mask microphone, that's an addition, okay? That is not a replacement. During tactical situations, often they require using gas, putting gas into the house. Well, if they got to go into that house, they have to wear this gas mask. So if they wear this gas mask, then what happens is when they're trying to communicate with all the other officers on scene, you're getting the muffles on like that, and it's very hard for them to communicate, which can be dangerous because now they don't know what the other officers are saying and things like that. So what they would like is to get these, I guess a microphone or amplifier in their mask so that they are able to communicate with each other when they are doing tactical operations in a house where gas has been deployed.
Thank you. Any questions?
Expected lifespan on something like this?
Longer than 18 years now that they'll be protected?
Well, on the
Need a new
plates?
microphone.
Oh, I don't know that the microphones will go bad.
No, the unit, not the microphones, the other. I mean, you can always replace a microphone, right? If a microphone failed, you'd be
Yeah,
able to
the-
replace that
the
easy.
whole-
The overall picture here,
They'll come out with new ones eventually.
I don't understand what you're asking.
How long will the helmets last?
The helmet.
the
How
helmet.
long?
Oh,
Yeah.
that,
The helmet itself, okay.
right, ballistic stuff has a 5-year warranty, then they say it goes out of warranty, so,
Oh, is that when it expires, after 5 years?
yeah.
Really? And we went 18?
What's
Is that
that?
what you're saying? I'm confused.
No, the 18
No,
was the
no,
fire.
2025, you need new ones,
Yeah.
or we put it back in the budget.
Okay. I'm out.
Oh, wait a minute, the ones that he's looking at buying have a 10-year. So,
10-year.
which is 5 years more than everything else. Usually with anything ballistic, especially vests and stuff, it's 5 years. So these plates that he's looking at are 10, so it wouldn't be for another 10 years that they would have to replace those, so.
That sounds good.
Any other questions?
You just wanted to hear it again.
I did.
Okay, show of hands for this item. It's unanimous.
It was the same.
Okay, takes us to page 16, Suburban Critical Incident Team Vehicle, SCIT vehicle. This was discussed already with all of you to authorize them to move forward with that because they're placing an order, the whole organization. So this is kind of a rerun.
Yep.
With all the other communities?
Yep.
Okay, easy enough.
So any other questions?
No.
Show of hands for those in favor? It's unanimous.
All right, thank you.
You're done. Thank you very much.
$4 million.
Okay. And then we have the finance and administration. Sharon is on page 5, I believe?
Yep.
5?
Yep. And this is just a carryover of the 2018 and 2019 amounts. The state's still experiencing a fair amount of issues, technical issues, as Kim can attest to. She just attended a conference, and the demo didn't even go well. So I am asking to defer that till 2020. So this has been asked for a few years now.
So we're just deferring it.
Just deferring it.
Okay. Show of hands to defer. Unanimous. Move on.
And financial software conversion, the last upgrade took place in 2012, and the vendor is going to honor a $44,700 discount for being a long-term customer. So our total cost would be $15,000, and that would entail quite a few new modules and upgrades.
And what is that for? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What was that?
What is that for? I couldn't hear
The
you.
financial software
Software upgrade.
Oh, okay.
with a significant discount. Any questions? Show of hands in support. Unanimous. That's it?
Yep, for capital.
Who said financial sheet?
That's right.
Okay.
Do you have enough? Should I take one then?
Yep.
I'm down.
Does everybody have this stuff? Everybody has this? Okay, I'm,
You have to keep passing it up.
You have to keep
oh,
passing.
I didn't know, I thought it was one. Okay.
Maybe that or no.
Our next item is review requested elected official salary comparisons and recommended rate increase. I am not going to participate in any of this discussion, so,
Yep. And this was a request of the council a few meetings
Yes.
ago. So we collected very similar data to the salary study we did for the non-represented staff. And you can see across the board, the total average is in the salary study average total, with the mayor at 39,466, alderperson 6,493, council president 7,452, and the judge at 24,161. However, I do want to point out that the full-time mayor positions are Brookfield, Greenfield, Neenah, and New Berlin. So off to the far right, the average for the full-time mayor position is 92,814, and the part-time 15,756.
Could we repeat those full times so I can mark them? I didn't catch it.
Oh, they're
Or
they're
they're
noted
marked
at the
Way at
bottom.
the end here.
It's all noted at the bottom.
Which,
In the narrative?
in which municipality? Okay, thank you.
Yep. So, and the other item I wanted to point out is if there were part-time, or for the part-time mayors, they employ an administrator or civic manager with salary ranges from 84,000 to 165. And actually, the city of Muskego salaries are in the very first column at the top. Current salary for the mayor, 66,473, and the other person, 7,639, and the judge at 15,000. The effective dates are also noted on the left. And this is by ordinance.
So is this with expenses and everything too? Is that what these dollars are?
These dollars are purely salary.
Just salary?
Just salary, and then noted in the narrative down below, I also pointed out
I see that.
the allowances.
Gotcha, okay.
Do we have any way of knowing on the ones that are part-time, if they have a business manager or additional?
I did note that
Yeah.
in there. So it says, all others employ city administrator.
But do
or
we
city-
know the combined in those cities that have part-time mayor?
What do you?
A mayor and a business manager,
I
what
have
they're
that
spending?
note. They are,
Yeah.
they all do.
They all do.
Well, if you just use the low end of the scale, John, the 84.6, and add that to the 16,000, for example, that the mayor gets in Oak Creek, you're at 100 grand. I, for one, think that we have to move up the salary for the mayor and for the judge. And I'm particularly looking at the NINA ranges as something that I'd like to see us strive for.
Are there any other questions, comments?
We would never reconsider changing our ways here, would we?
As to,
As to, I don't know how many cities actually do mayor and business manager type, or whatever they call it.
We did it here once. We had a city administrator here. It didn't work very well.
Just curious.
We did try.
We tried it once, yes, I'm aware of that.
Yes. Sharon hasn't been the same since.
Did we do it wrong?
Well, yeah, we reversed almost everything that was implemented, which you know.
Yes, we did.
Did we do that wrong?
That's all I'm going to say.
Just curious.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
so the mayor, we set the mayor's salary, there's no adjustment, there's no, that's just a flat figure that we put
That's
into
how
effect.
all the
and-
comparables come in, yep.
Okay,
I
and
think
that,
there was one that had like a start and then halfway through the term bumped up.
Okay.
But it was very rare to see that.
so that was set 14 years ago, is that correct?
Yep,
Okay.
2005.
And our generous pay was set,
Back in 2002.
2002.
5. Mayor was 2005.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are too.
No,
Older,
2002.
older person.
Right.
2002.
And I'm surprised that the judge's salary was adjusted just a couple of years ago. Interesting.
Sharon, did you want to at least pipe in, though, the judges, we did it by a caseload thing, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, there was a reason. that prompted it forward, wasn't there?
He approached us.
No, he did not.
I thought he talked about.
He did not approach us.
The staff, I think, did. The
We did it on our own. He did not approach us.
I thought we talked to him.
No.
Just so you know, being a municipal judge myself, the numbers are all over the board for judges. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's been studies done over the course of the years that I've been a judge, and some municipalities that seem to have a lot more people, their judges are making less. Some judges from smaller municipalities are making more. I could never, I've been looking at this for years now, and I could never put kind of any rhyme or reason to it. There are studies if you wanted to know what tons of judges make, but Sharon's got enough on here. But it's all over the board.
If we make an adjustment, does it stay that way until another council decides to do something with it, or?
It has to run with a term, I
It's
believe.
by ordinance, so until
Yeah.
you would change that.
So we're setting something permanent until somebody else says
Correct.
we need to do it otherwise.
I mean, is our caseload similar to these other communities? I have no idea.
For judges, our caseload is about 5,000 to 6,000 cases, which isn't a lot. Well, it's about middle. In Brookfield, I do about 9,000
But they have more
cases
population there. so
Right,
our
cases.
population is growing too.
per year. Right,
It was about half of what Brookfield.
Right.
Well, they got 38K, it says.
No, in terms of the number of cases?
Yeah. He's looking at population.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they got about 13,000 more people. Got more area to cover.
And the other thing about a municipal judge is like, they're up, our judge is retiring this year, so you're going to have a new judge, and to attract people, it's hard to get judges who are attorneys and who are gonna say, well, I wanna come a couple nights a week or a couple times a month and go through all this and be up here deciding cases, and,
Get them out of here.
well, and I'm only making so much per year,
That's probably why the rates fluctuate so much.
Right.
It's what the city needs.
In some small communities, there are no
Right.
there are no attorneys who are judges.
I like the Met ones.
Very essential.
You get what you pay for.
They have 0 cases up there.
Yeah.
It's, everybody knows. He's announced it to the judicial world.
Looks like it's been many
I don't have one.
years, right? They got,
So if there's, do we move on, or what?
Well,
If there's,
It's awful quick decision too.
yeah, I mean,
We should defer.
I think we should give this some thought. We have these numbers.
Okay.
I guess I don't know how we proceed from here, other than all of us taking a look at this, giving it some thought, and see where we go next meeting. Because I couldn't make a decision tonight anyway, because I don't know anything about judges, other than we've got one here.
Okay.
And he obviously
Okay.
makes too darn
Yeah.
Yeah.
then we will move on to discuss and recommend non-represented rate increase. So the non-union employees pay increase. So Sharon, I'm turning over to you. She has a wealth of information.
I didn't make copies, but I did find a fair amount of resources, SHRM, 2020 salary
We can't have side conversations, thank you.
is just a notch above 3%. Salary.com, they're stating flat 3%. World at Work, and if anybody wants to look at these, you can certainly, I can pass them along. They're averaging 3%. So, and the House just passed the 2020 federal pay raise, containing an average 3.1% federal pay raise for civilian workers in 2020. However, this has not gone through the Senate yet. So that appears to be the average. So we are looking for a recommended percentage to put into the budget for the non-represented employees.
So based on all that,
It's 2.5.
So how would that be administered? Is it straight across the board? Or
Yes.
based on,
Well, it would be on merit. It would be based 100%
it's,
on merit.
yeah, it's merit, so it's up to that percentage. It's always up to.
okay, okay. So that's up to the director? to-
Each department head, correct.
Okay.
And the other question we would have is if you determine to put in a percentage increase, would you want that to apply to the salary ranges? Or you want the ranges to stay status quo? Or would you want to put a?
Didn't we just look at the ranges?
We did do a salary study in 18, which went into effect in 2019.
I think the ranges should stay where they're at.
They should move periodically, though.
Well, they just did last year.
Maybe this isn't the year,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
And we were behind. The only fear is if you don't move it a little, then when you do the study again, you end up way behind. Now you got to come up with
I
a
got
lot
all
of.
these people at the.
I think it's
You
just-
know, do 1%.
Yeah, split it. We've done that before, split it
Portion.
somewhat.
Do we have a lot of top range now?
What was that?
Do we have a lot of our people at top range now?
With the salary study, no, I think everybody's at a comfortable, level
Uh-huh.
within the range. There may be about just a handful that are at the max.
Ken,
If you increase this at 3%, what would this affect the budget at? You got a dollar figure?
It would probably be about 150,000 with benefits. I know 2.5 is 134,000 because I
Sure.
calculated that one.
can we once, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, instead of looking at increase in the range, if somebody is at that top range and they're limited on getting an increase, we could always do it as a lump sum payout to them. couldn't
That is
we?
our policy right now in our employment policy handbook. So if you are at the max, you would get a lump
Yeah.
sum with the
We
same
don't have
percentage.
many there, if any, no.
Right.
Right.
But that is in the policy.
Okay.
We've got a relatively young police force, I understand. And we did have retirements, Wayne Delicate and so forth. Does that make us in a different way of looking at this in any way? Does that
Well, you
give
have
us
to
much to think
remember
on?
the union versus
Yeah, they're
non-union
rep.
police.
Yep.
And that should be coming forward, the proposal, hopefully at the next.
All right, I understand
council
that.
meeting. The union agreement.
I don't have any problem with the 3%. That seems to be a kind of a given out there. But I'd like to see us move that range 1%, just to keep that ratio in there. I'd also, is it possible to get a report by department, once all is said and done, to see if we've just gone 3% across the board, or if we're, I'm just
This is a
trying to, yeah.
up to 3% merit raise, that's how we do it. That's how we do it.
What he's saying is he
Right,
wants
but
to
I'd like
see if
see how the chips fall once the individuals, I don't want to see individual.
Right.
Well, in the
I just want to see it.
How it plays
yeah,
out.
To see where we're at.
In the
See if we just went
proposed-
3% across the board.
Yeah.
How it actually plays out, is what you're saying.
Kevin, I don't really think, according to what they said, I don't think we really need to raise anything 1%. We just went over that, and anybody who's at the cap will get the extra money and a one-time payout. We could probably leave that till next time, till next
Can,
visit.
but just a thought, I just like to see.
Because
this
we just had, how long did we have that count? Was it last year?
2018.
Yeah, I think we just went through all and just raised everything, so that's why nobody's at the top right now.
Except for just, I mean, I
But they'll
don't care
get a
what you do in the
one-time
end.
payout, yeah.
But I would like to point out, our comps out there that we compare with, they'll probably be adding to their base, so then we'll slowly work a way out of it again. Then we'll have to come up with a lot of money. So it's your call. I'm just pointing that out,
They're not gonna-
and I think that's what Kevin's alluding to. So,
It's
Sharon,
a
you were
horse-
gonna,
It's a horse apiece, but I'd just like to see us move those ranges as we increase salaries, just to keep parity, so that we're not falling behind, then 5 years from now, we bump these things up 10%.
Yeah, 1% a year is easier to swallow than 2 or 3% at once.
Yeah.
So Kevin, are you making a motion?
Sure, why not? I'll make that motion.
What is your motion?
Up to 3%
with 1%
with a
base.
1% range. movement.
Thank you.
So does that mean the bases are all going to move up 1% on everybody?
Just the range.
Just the range.
Just the range.
Just the range.
Just the
So if you're
range.
making 100,000 a year right now, you're going to make 101,000 or no?
No, just
No.
the range.
Okay.
Just the
No.
salary range.
Okay, I just want to understand it, okay.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Any other discussion on that?
Everything's good.
Okay, all those in favor, just put your hand up. It's easier. Thank you. It's unanimous. Okay, thank you. And I think that's the end. No communications and miscellaneous business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. And then we'll be rolling into our council meeting. I told you, gentlemen, it would be a long night.
You need a break?